Vitale Wealth Management with this week's graded investment market update. All information is gathered as of the week, May 11th, 2026. Hope everything is going good so far and hope all of you mothers had a wonderful Mother's Day. Let's talk about what's going on. It was another positive week for major U.S. indexes. The NASDAQ led gains 4.52%, the S&P at 2.36%, the Dow 0.25%. Both the S&P and the NASDAQ marked sixth consecutive week of gains supported by stronger than expected quarterly earnings growth. Remember, we talked about earnings drives the market. Emerging markets outperformed both international developed and major U.S. indexes last week, gaining 6.9% compared to 1.09 increase for international developed stocks. Now, meanwhile, continued volatility in oil prices renewed inflation concerns, pushing the yield on the 30-year U.S. Treasury above 5.0 for the first time in nearly 10 months. We're also seeing the interest rates on mortgages up a little, and the 10-year Treasury is also up a little bit higher as well. Talk about upcoming economic releases. This week we'll focus on inflation with consumer spending trends. Today, the CPI number is reported, and we'll talk about that next week a little, right in line with expectations for the trajectory of inflation. This will be followed by the release of the producer price index on Wednesday. That'll be tomorrow, offering another look at inflation pressures at the wholesale level. Then Thursday, retail sales data will provide timely updating on strength of consumer spending. Well, with profits and everything else, we are still seeing a lot of spending. So things are looking good so far, but the pressures because of the oil prices are hurting. Now, last week, jobs and unemployment reports showed that the U.S. economy added another month of solid job gains, continuing the positive momentum seen in March. Meanwhile, the unemployment rate remains steady at 4.3%. Earnings season also continues to deliver strong results, with analysts now expecting an average Q1 net return growth of 27.7%, which would mark the strongest earnings growth since Q4 of 2021. At the start of earnings season, expectations stood at 13.1%, highlighting the strength of recent corporate results. Investors' attention now turn to the CPI release, which will provide another key update on inflation trends, and markets will be watching closely to see whether the recent rise in inflation pressures driven by higher energy prices extended into April. And in March, the CPI showed an annual inflation rate of 3.3, up notably from 2.4 the previous month. Of course, energy is a big part of that. Geopolitical developments are also expected to remain in focus this week as President Trump travels to China for a two-day summit in Beijing with President Xi Jinping. Now, discussions are expected to center heavily on the ongoing conflicts in Iran, while also touching on tariffs, technology, Taiwan, and rare earth supply chains. The visit marks the first trip the U.S. president to China since 2017. Let's talk about recent trading. There was trading in the Core Select and small and mid-cap portfolio last week with the following. The Core Select sold ABT, PODD, Vertex, but they bought CrowdStrike, and SMID reduced the COO and AMG and bought RBA and AR and IVZ, which means nothing to you. Those are stock tickers. You can look them up. Let's talk about stocks in the news. Berkshire Hathaway, which is owned in the Core Select, beat Q1 operating profit estimates, driven by strong insurance underwriting results. The company's cash pile rose to a record of $397 billion. Shares gained 1.58% for the week. How about McDonald's, owned in the G50 and the Core Select, also topped Q1 earnings estimates and reported positive same-store sales growth. However, management warned of worsening consumer spending due to a spike in gas. Shares were down 2.94% for the week. Also, we did get the CPI numbers for today. Market was down at the opening, but it's up a little bit, but the NASDAQ is down considerable today. But we're going to see that. We've been hitting record highs almost every day. So the NASDAQ is up over 12% this year, the Dow about 3%, S&P about 6 to 8%. So we're seeing some strong positive growth so far this year. But there is, of course, still volatility. The oil prices are still high. God willing, hopefully this stuff in Iran gets settled in the next couple of weeks, let's hope, and gets energy prices back down. And then we'll see, we'll be off to the races, I'm hoping, from there. So that is it for this week. Thank you so much for being part of the Vitale Wealth family. If you need to get a hold of us, 855-756-5700. Visit us at vitalewealth.com. And God bless you. We look forward to seeing you again next week.